Last year, I made a similar video on reading my Stanford supplemental essays, and while I think that the advice I gave in that video was helpful, in the past year, I think I've gained more wisdom in terms of writing these essays that can provide even more value to you. I've also had an opportunity to take a look at my Stanford admissions file, which has the actual comments that my admissions officers made about my different essays, so I know exactly what they liked and didn't like about them. And so while there is no secret sauce to writing these essays and everyone should find the path that works best for them, I did watch a lot of these essay reading videos back when I was applying to Stanford and found them pretty helpful. So I'm passing the favor on to you guys. Again, you shouldn't follow my essays to a T because mine were in no way perfect, and you definitely shouldn't plagiarize them, but I do hope that these can help inspire you as you navigate these prompts for your own essays. This video is probably going to be very long because Stanford has applicants write a lot of essays, so be sure to pay attention and take notes as you need. So let's get to it. Briefly elaborate on one of your extracurricular activities or work or family responsibilities. 150 words. To win a spot on WGBH's high school quiz show, our quiz team faced off against team after team, making our way to the semifinals. Then, disaster struck. The match felt off. Every time we pressed the buzzer, nothing happened. The other team gained a hefty lead. Then I saw it. Our buzzer's cables were disconnected. We explained the discovery to the show host, Jeff Kinney, my favorite childhood author and now mortal enemy, but he insisted we continue after a half-hearted attempt to fix the cables. Unsurprisingly, we lost. It should have ended at that, but our coach wouldn't accept it. Seeing her stand her ground against the big shot producer lit our fighting spirits. We protested and wouldn't let up until they let us redo the match with new buzzers. We won the rematch, then the finals. Now moving on, will our struggles pay off? Tune into High School Quiz Show to find out. This is almost the exact same prompt as the one I wrote for my Brown application, and also other schools that I was not accepted to. So I'll just summarize what I said here. Basically, since this essay is only 150 words, you gotta be as short as possible. Forget backstory and all that and just focus on advancing the plot. While you're gonna be talking about one of your activities, it would be good to focus on one specific event that happened in that activity. For my essay, I wrote about my experience on High School Quiz Show, which was kind of like a team version of Jeopardy, and I wrote specifically about the preliminary rounds before getting onto the actual TV competition. I didn't really even elaborate or give much context because I just didn't have the word space to do so. If Stanford wanted more context, then they could have given me more words to work with, but since I already explained my activity in the activity section of my Common App, this essay was just focused on the plot. I wanted to make my essay really action-packed so that they'd be more likely to remember me, because back when I applied to Harvard, I wrote a different essay for this same exact prompt. I applied there early action, so I hadn't actually done any of the quiz show stuff yet, so I ended up writing about my time in student government, which, as you may have been able to guess, did not work out too well for me. In my admissions file, one of my readers said that my extracurricular activities were standard, which means a lot of other applicants would have had the same kinds of activities that I did. So by writing about something more exciting, I was better able to separate myself from the crowd. When you're applying to schools like Stanford, you are in a very fierce competition for a very limited number of spots against probably thousands of other applicants who are just as qualified as you are. And since acceptance rates to these schools are dropping every year, statistically, you gotta win over like 49 other people. Picking the most exciting story you can tell that is as unique to you as possible is really the only way to go. What is the most significant challenge that society faces today? 50 words. Disunity among countries prevents progress on international problems. To solve issues like climate change, we must cooperate. Unfortunately, us versus them tribalist ideology persists. Countries only attend to their own economic needs and interests first. Promoting intercultural exchange will help countries understand and work with one another to help the world prosper. As one of the top universities in the world, Stanford wants to help foster the next generation of world changers. That means that they want students who can think big and have the potential to go on and do great things in the world. And so since I applied as a linguistics/international relations major, I chose to talk about an issue that pertains to those fields. A lot of students at Stanford come in with ideas for doing something big and plan to use their studies and time at Stanford to work towards those goals. And so by relating this significant challenge to your potential major, that can definitely help connect the different parts of your application while also showing that you might be a good fit for your major. In my admissions file, my readers said that my intended major leaned in my favor, which means that since a lot of the different parts of my application showed my interest in that field, my application as a whole was viewed more favorably. And so while you don't absolutely have to relate the issue you described to your potential field of study, that is what I chose to do, and it did work out for me. What's important here is that the different parts of your application mesh well together to paint a nuanced image of the kind of student you will be. How did you spend your last 2 summers? 50 words. Studied Korean in Jeonju through Nisley Y, went to my first concert, visited Lotte World, frequented the Norebang, PCbang, and Disco Pang Pang, started a YouTube channel, volunteered at 2 hospitals, took dual enrollment classes, worked at a pizzeria, learned to drive, attended church, visited art museums, made new friends, survived, thrived. Here, I kind of just threw in a bunch of different things I did the last 2 summers of high school. Half of it was just me talking about fun things I did in Korea because I did spend a whole summer there, but the other half was just a bunch of things that I ended up not really mentioning anywhere else in my application. I use just verb phrases here because the word count is pretty limiting and I wanted to put as much stuff as I could. This isn't really a deep essay or anything. They just want to see that you are doing stuff in your off time. It doesn't even have to strictly be what one may consider productive work. Like I did talk about taking dual enrollment classes and volunteering at a hospital, but I also talked about like going to karaoke, internet cafes, and disco pang pang. And so I think that striking a good balance between work and fun is a good way to show that you can be productive and get work done while also being able to have fun and live your life. What historical moment or event do you wish you could have witnessed? 50 words. I wish I could have seen national hero Jose Rizal write Nole Me Tangere, watching as the passion in his pen gave birth to a nation. His novel defined what it means to be Filipino: devoted, grateful, resilient. His words united Filipinos in the fight for independence under a common flag. My biggest piece of advice for this prompt would be to pick something as unique as possible. Things like the I Have a Dream speech or Nelson Mandela being freed from prison are obviously notable historical events, but since they are some of the first things that would come to mind when hearing this kind of prompt, they are a bit common. History is very long, and in that time, a lot of things have happened. The same messages that you hear through these more common historical events can also be heard in more obscure historical events. In the case of my essay, I wrote about Jose Rizal, a Philippine national hero. Themes of revolution can be seen all throughout history, but I feel like unless the applicant is also Filipino, they aren't going to be writing about Rizal. My Filipino culture and heritage are important to me and my identity, and so I wanted to express that through this prompt. If you have a strong connection to your own cultural background, choosing something from your culture's history can help develop a more personal connection to the event you're writing about. You know, there's a whole world of history you can choose from. Don't be afraid to choose something obscure. If anything, that'll just be one more thing to separate you from the crowd. What 5 words best describe you? 5 words. Industrious, resourceful, intentional, sarcastic, sleep deprived. The prompt here says 5 words. Common App does let you type up to 10 words, but please stick to the 5. If you write, I like to break the rules, You're not being cool and quirky, so please just stick to the 5. There's no need to think about this too deeply, just be as true to your personality because they really want to get an idea of who you are as a person. For my answer, my first 3 words are more serious and the last 2 words are more fun. There wasn't much rhyme or reason for it. You can just really just write whatever. You know, I was very sleep deprived during the time I was working on my applications, so I threw it in there. It doesn't make me look that good, but it is an accurate reflection of who I am, and that's what they want to see. And, you know, hopefully they got a good chuckle out of it. I also just asked some people this same question to see what they had to say about me. It was mostly the same as what I wrote about myself, but getting an outside perspective is always nice. So if you aren't sure how to describe yourself, you can always ask like your family or friends or teachers or whatever, because I'm sure they have a different perspective of you than you do of yourself. In the 2020 to 2021 application cycle, Stanford removed this prompt. It's kind of unfortunate, but this essay probably just didn't have a big enough impact on admissions to warrant needing it. But who knows, it could come back in future years. When the choice is yours, what do you read, listen to, or watch? 50 words. Read Webtoon, sometimes in Korean, Shonen Jump, National Geographic, Next Shark, The New York Times. Listen Hyukoh, Kim Soo-young, Blackpink, Radwimps, Almost, Hardcore History, Philosophize This, Stuff You Missed in History Class. Watch Crash Course, TED-Ed, Black Mirror, Gukje Shijang, A Silent Voice, A Place Further Than the Universe, The Boston Celtics. So this prompt is actually pretty similar to Columbia's listing essay prompts. In both cases, my understanding is that they kind of just want to gauge what your different interests are. As you can see, for each category, I had a good mix of more fun things and more educational things. You shouldn't try to sound like a hyper intellectual that spends all their time around super academic media, because that isn't the reality for most people who are applying. You know, if you are the kind of person that likes to watch Harvard lectures on YouTube and read scientific journals in your free time, all the power to you. But most applicants are gonna be spending their free time with more fun and entertaining things, and that's okay. This prompt is really just trying to see your interests and make sure that you're a normal person. But sadly, this prompt also wasn't in the 2020 to 2021 application, which means it may not have been that important for admissions. But again, it could come back in future application years, so don't count it out just yet. Name one thing you are looking forward to experiencing at Stanford, 50 words. As much as I'll be learning inside the classroom, I'm excited for the unique opportunity to engage in linguistic fieldwork around the world. One project I'm interested in is Voices of California, because I'm curious about how regional differences in slang develop. Do people in SoCal really say gnarly? This is kinda like a Why Us essay, in that Stanford wants to know about what unique opportunities you hope to take advantage of when you come to their school. For me, I chose to write about Voices of California because I was applying as a prospective linguistics major and I found the project pretty interesting. So my response did 3 things. 1, it showed why I was excited to attend Stanford, answering the why us aspect of the prompt. 2, it reinforced the idea that I was interested in majoring in linguistics. 3, it showed that I had done a lot of research on the school and could talk about this one super specific thing that they had. If you think about a more common answer, like how Stanford has world-class academic resources, that is definitely true, but it's pretty non-specific since a lot of other universities can also be considered world-class in academics. So going for a more unique answer is, as always, the best way to go. Your word limits for all of these essays are very short. I think they've actually decreased the word count for some of the essays since I applied. This means that you gotta try to get as much mileage out of your words as possible and hit as many birds as you can with a single stone. You know, you can't look at each essay in a vacuum because your application readers are going to be looking at them as a whole. You got to consider how the different parts of your application are going to work together and how you can strengthen these connections. The stronger these connections, the more fleshed out and developed your application looks. Imagine you had an extra hour in the day. How would you spend that time? 50 words. Some months ago, I bought a copy of Comparative Grammar of Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and French. It's been sitting on my bookshelf ever since I bought it. I'd love to finally finish this book and devote time to learning new languages, other than the 5 minutes on Duolingo before bed. Frankly speaking, you can really take this prompt at face value. I know some people who have said that they'd want to sleep for another hour or spend another hour getting schoolwork done. As for me, I chose to spend my extra hour reading a book about learning languages. Again, ties into my intended majors and the personal narrative of communication I had been developing throughout my whole application. This prompt isn't really all that deep, and it was another one of the prompts that got removed in the 2020 to 2021 application cycle. If it does come back in the future, there are many answers you could give, but you should always keep in mind how the answer that you give fits into the bigger puzzle that you're putting together to show the application readers. Now, for all these past essays, my application readers never actually directly mentioned them. And I think that's because these shorter essays aren't gonna do too much on their own. One puzzle piece on its own isn't worth much. Once you start putting them together, that's when you can see the big picture. One of my readers wrote that while nothing about my application particularly jumped out at them, the different parts worked together to keep me in the running, which ultimately led to me being accepted. So in the end, it's all about having good synergy with the different parts of your application. The rest of the essays I have are a bit longer, which means that they're given more importance. My readers did make direct notes about some of these, so I imagine they're more individually important than the previous essays. The Stanford community is deeply curious and driven to learn in and out of the classroom. Reflect on an idea or experience that makes you genuinely excited about learning. 250 words. The first time I spoke Spanish outside of a classroom was at the pizzeria I worked at. On a hot summer afternoon just after I clocked in, a young Latino man came in. Squinting at the menu in confusion, he came to the counter and asked in a heavy accent if I spoke Spanish. This is the moment, I thought, to finally put my Spanish to use. With 5 years of study under my belt, I replied confidently, "Sí, señor. ¿Cómo puedo ayudarle?" After successfully taking his order, 2 large pepperoni pizzas, my boss gave me a high five. I was sweating a little and my heart beat with excitement. I had done it. Although my Spanish wasn't perfect, I was able to reach him. There was a special moment we shared when his face lit up after I greeted him in his native tongue. We'd formed a bond through a common language. It is those moments I strive for. I love learning languages. If I can't reach someone in English, maybe Spanish will work, or Tagalog, or Korean. One day, I'll be able to reach more people in more languages. But first, I need to study and practice. Language is what makes us human. It's our vehicle for storytelling. When I greet the old couple down the street with hola, my grandfather with kamusta ka, or my host mom with annyeonghaseyo, when our voices can reach each other, that is when we feel the most human, even if we're just ordering pizza. This essay is also known as the intellectual vitality essay, which some say is the most important essay of the application, maybe aside from the Common App essay. And that's because in Stanford's applicant rating system, intellectual vitality gets its own number. That just goes to show how important it is to show that you are intellectually vivacious. My approach to showing my intellectual vitality was to take a seemingly mundane event and examine it through a more introspective lens. Because you can show your intellectual vitality through things like writing research papers or attending scientific conferences or whatever else smart people do, but those things are inherently intellectual. It's a lot more showing, in my opinion, to convey the same meanings through something that you wouldn't normally consider very high-level intellectual, like taking someone's pizza order. That wasn't any sort of academic setting, but it did make me more excited for learning about something that I really enjoy, learning about foreign languages. And this event could also be tied back to my intended majors and help develop my personal themes. Again, hitting multiple birds with one stone. Both of my application readers picked up on themes of storytelling and communication through different languages, and they said that I had good synthesis of showing those ideas, which means that the quality of writing and execution of your ideas is equally important as the ideas themselves. This is definitely a challenging prompt, but if you have a passion for any field of study or even a deep interest in a specific subject, there's gotta be something that sparked that interest, or something that has further grown that passion. It doesn't have to be in an academic setting. Honestly, I'd argue it works even better if it's not. The important thing is that you're able to convey your love of learning, because you're gonna be doing a lot of it over the next 4 years. Virtually all of Stanford's undergraduates live on campus. Write a note to your future roommate that reveals something about you or that will help your roommate and us get to know you better. 250 words. Dear roommate. The only roommates I've had before are my 2 younger brothers, so I'm really excited to meet you. Here's to the start of our great adventure. One thing though, I love vlogging. I started a YouTube channel to document my time in Korea, and I've been hooked since. So if you're cool with it, I'd love to chronicle our journey at Stanford together. With our dashing good looks and great chemistry, we may very well become internet famous. The next RP perk, perhaps. Let's explore Stanford together. As a native Bostonian, I'll be in full tourist mode, at least for the first few months, so let's make tons of new friends to come along. Whether it's a new boba shop, frisbee in the park, or quiz bowl club, there'll be plenty of exciting things to see and do. I hope we can become close friends as we spend our days together. We can play Minecraft or pick up basketball. We can cry together over Ghibli movies or late night study sessions. We can jam out to K-pop or kick back to some R&B. I'll bring in an Alexa. As you can see, my interests vary a lot, so I'm excited to see what you're into too. I'd love to hear your story. And if you ever need something, or just someone to talk to, I'm your guy. College can be daunting, but let's brave these waters together. With lots of love, your future roomie. I haven't read this essay back in well over a year, and it's pretty cringe. One of Stanford's traditions for freshmen is that you don't actually know who your roommate is until you get to your dorm room. And Stanford actually gives this letter to your roommate. So in other words, whatever you write here is going to be given to a real life person who you are going to be living with and sharing many intimate moments with for at least the next year. I did not get that experience, unfortunately, because I am still home, and I don't think they'll be giving these letters to my sophomore year roommate, but who knows? I guess the best advice I could give is to write this letter while keeping in mind that someone your age that you don't know is going to be reading it, in addition to your usual application readers. So please minimize the cringe as much as you can. Just want you to know though that no matter what you do, you will think it's cringe when you go back to read it some months later, but try to minimize the damage as best you can. This letter isn't really asking for anything too specific, so you can just talk about yourself and your interests and what you hope to do on campus. Neither of my application readers said anything about this letter in my admissions file, so I take it that this is just to try to get to know you better and to uphold this fun little tradition that they have. So just try to sound as natural as possible. As long as you don't come off as a weirdo, you'll be good. Tell us about something that is meaningful to you and why. 250 words. It's a Friday night around 1 a.m. Usually my parents would have made everyone go to bed by now, but tonight they're actually sitting next to us. My brothers are on a 9-game losing streak. Try as they may, my Pikachu is unbeatable. Just a few moves later, their Roy and Link are sent flying off screen. That one doesn't count, one more. And so begins another round. Super Smash Bros. Is the only game everyone in my family plays. The occasional nights when we all get together to play are always filled with laughter. In the midst of everyone's busy schedules, it's one of the few things we can still bond over. There's a level of universality in Smash that few other games can replicate. There's little text to read through, and the controls are easy enough to pick up that someone could get by with pressing random buttons. Even my 80-year-old grandmother has been able to play a few matches with us. It's moments like these when I think to myself, I'm really going to miss this. I cherish these rare opportunities to forget about everything and simply have fun as a family. Soon I'll be heading off to college, so we won't be able to play together as much. Nonetheless, I know that whenever I come home, we'll all gather around the TV on a Friday night and play together until the sun comes up. But for now, my brothers are going to lose their 10th game in a row. This prompt is intentionally left non-specific, which gives you a lot of creative wiggle room to explore different things. By asking about something that's meaningful to you, they want to get a better idea of the kind of person you are and get to know you at a deeper level. This is where you can show a lot of your personal side that you can't really convey in other parts of your application. I would recommend to choose something meaningful to you that is not related to academics in any way, shape, or form. You've had the entire rest of your application to talk about academics, things related to academics, and things related to academics. This is a place where you can just forget all about that and just talk about something that is deeply personal to you. While you are a student, you are also a person, and they want to see that side of you. For me, it was writing about family game night, and for you, it'll be something completely different. It's kind of hard to explain it, but if the essay we talked about 2 essays ago is looking at your intellectual vitality, this essay is looking at your personal vitality, emotional vitality. I get the vibe that it's looking at your intangible qualities in the same way as the essay about intellectual vitality does, but completely outside of an academic context. While they want to know about the academic pursuits that are important to you, they're also just as curious about the more personal things that are just as important to you. So I'd say that the best way I could describe it is as personal vitality or emotional vitality. I made up those terms just now, but hopefully you guys can see the connection. The only thing that my admission reader had to say about this essay was fine. Originally, I thought that was a bad thing, but looking back at it now, if this essay was fine, that means it wasn't bad. And honestly speaking, that's the best thing you can ask for given the circumstances. Great, and those were all of my Stanford essays. If you enjoyed hearing me read them, please feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If not, then you don't have to. This video was very, very long, probably, but thank you for sticking to the end, and I hope you gained some solid information from this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!